All
So
right. So,
I had a situation where last year someone came into one of my classes and pretended they were from an authority that I report to, and they weren't. They just wanted to sit in my class, and then they wrote a letter to the authority telling them that I was incompetent or my class was great, and then went on to say I did all these things wrong. And so I they contacted me and asked me why did I let that guy in the class, and I said no, he told me he was from you. And they said no, we actually fired him, you replaced it, hired you to replace him.
sounds like an interesting situation. Yes.
And so, that kind of was uncomfortable as we were trying to figure out all the things that had happened. And yeah, he was just behaving badly, I guess. And so that was all solved. And now this year, I got a message saying that the insurance company that I work with is sending me back to that same city to do more training. And apparently, they had some changes in their staffing because they came across that person's letter saying that my work was no good. And they
It's in
sent
the
it to
system.
me asking me, did this ever get resolved? We don't want you here if your work is no good. So
Okay.
I contacted the insurance company and the company that, all the different other people that are in that line. And I just in my own mind, I overreacted. I was livid and I wasn't going to go back there. And, I was going to just don't use me anymore, and all this other stuff. And I didn't know that it was new people that were reading this stuff. And they really shouldn't have contacted me directly. They should have gone to the insurance company, but the way it was kind of like, we don't want you here if if you're still bad.
Hmm.
And I was livid, and a lot of people had to come in and apologize to me and solve the problem, and I didn't care. I was quitting as far as I was concerned. And then everyone stepped up and they handled it, and it all turned out just fine. But I can't get over in my mind that I overreacted. you know?
Hmm. Hmm. So
Yeah.
what was it about that made you overreact? If you
Well,
can.
after I did it, I had the thought that I could have just said, "Oh yeah, that was taken care of." I could have just said
Mhm.
that. That was definitely
Right.
taken care of. Go ahead and call the insurance company and they'll confirm it for you. Instead of, "I'm never talking to you again," and "No, don't call
Right.
me," and I'm never, I don't, my life is in danger if you really believe that that guy is up, and yeah, I did
Yeah.
all
So
that.
so what was it about that idea that they were coming to you saying, if you're really that bad, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
What was that to you that made you react that way? Can you find the interpretation?
Um, there was a moment where I thought that they just automatically believed the man instead of the woman. That the man said the woman was incompetent, and so the woman is incompetent.
Okay. Hmm.
That was what came to me. That it was like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is
And
that what made you livid, do you think?
that they also contacted me instead of the insurance company who is sending me there.
Mhm.
That asking me, did this get resolved? We don't want you if you're not competent.
And what was it about them contacting you that
It
made
was
that
inappropriate.
such?
I'm not, I don't have the level of authority there. I am the trainer. The insurance company sends the trainer to the city to do the training.
Hmm.
So this is someone new in human resources who comes across this letter that's a year old and contacts the person who they don't want there instead of the insurance company to ask them if that was still the case. So here's yeah, it was a debacle.
Yeah.
But and I
Okay.
could have, my in my head it was like I could have said, "Oh, you know what? You need to contact the insurance company if that's the concern that you're having.
Right.
Your name is different. I don't think we've worked together before. Thank you for checking to make sure, thank you for checking to make sure that this was resolved before you had someone come in." That
So
was later.
what I'm looking for is just the thought that if we can find it, the thought that gives rise to this reaction inside instead of the
There were a
calm
lot of people
way.
that had to calm me down.
Yeah. So what was it? Okay, so I've heard a couple things so far. They
Okay.
automatically believed the man instead of the woman. That could be a part of it.
Hmm.
Or they contacted me instead of contacting the insurance company. And that even that is like a kind of the statement of fact in a way. But what was it about that that just drove you crazy there in the heat of the moment?
Like
What were they
they don't
doing
know
to
what they're
you?
doing. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to handle a sensitive situation and
Hmm.
put me in a place that wasn't my place to resolve it. You know, they put me in that spot of why should we use you if you're incompetent? It's like
Right.
I don't care a flying F if you use me or not.
Yeah.
It felt like it was being rubbed in, like it was
There
I
you go.
yeah.
Okay, so
And they believed it,
that's
they believed it, and, that they were gonna call me and say so, and they got an earful from me, so, it I proved to them that I can be very not
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what I was looking for. It's like
Oh
these are the emotional interpretations. We're getting really close to it now.
my
It's like
god, right.
what were they doing to me? They were rubbing it in, right?
They were really
They were believing it. Like that those kind of things uh
more
are the kind of
powerful.
things it's what's starting it
Right.
can make me erupt because it's starting to be what they're doing to me on a personal level here. And that it doesn't mean like that's what I'm thinking even consciously, but
No, but it had to have
emotionally,
been for me to react the way I reacted, I had to have believed that
that's
they
it.
were calling me to make sure I knew that they weren't gonna use me because someone else said I was incompetent.
That's right. That's right.
Got it.
That's
Got
right.
it.
Something
Yeah,
like
that actually
that.
and that idea, I
Yes. Okay. So they were, what's the word? They were rubbing it in. Is that
they were
close
rubbing
enough?
it
Or,
in.
yeah. Okay. So is that true? They were rubbing it in.
Felt like it, yeah.
Yeah. That's what it felt like, right? So, so can you absolutely know it's true? That's what they were doing. And speak here from the emotions, see what you can find from your own experience, your own truth as best you can find it.
I'll say no, and I'm gonna explain why, because I think it's relevant. I don't think that this new person who took over this job at their human resources had any experience at all. I think that they were just covering until they can actually find someone. And as far as handling situations like this, I think they were clueless.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you react? What happens when you think that they are rubbing it in? Go back to the moment when you don't know anything, you just get this call, and how do you react when you think they're rubbing it in, when you have that feeling?
If I'm incompetent, then get someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was
And
this
what's
handled? Yes, this was resolved. And you need to go find out how it was resolved. And you need to go talk to the insurance company, not me. And if you don't want me, fine, find someone else. Good luck with that.
right? And what's the tone of your voice, at least in your head?
if if every word that I'm speaking should be leaving a big hole in you, is the tone of my voice.
Are you getting hit? Because I'm shooting.
People are going to be able to see the wall behind you when I'm done talking at you.
This is how you react, right? So they call up and ask you, say, well, if you're not good, we don't want you. And you're like, you think they're rubbing it in, and then
You think
boom.
you're stupid? Listen to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You think you're rubbing it in for me? I'm about to rub it into you.
Oh
So this
yeah.
is reaction. This is reaction. Where do you feel it in your body? They're rubbing it in.
Huh. Make fists. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna pound them.
Ready to go to war.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. I've never been violent to another person, but it's
It's how it
yeah.
happens.
I go right
I
with that.
believe a thought, it has the emotional charge, and
Yeah,
then without much preparation, suddenly I've got fists and I'm ready
right.
to
And I'm
fight.
forward. I'm
Yep.
forward with fists. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, you want to fight? Come on.
And so you've probably answered a lot of this, but any other ways that you treat that person or the whole organization when you think they're rubbing it in?
When I'm insane like that, that
Hmm.
that that city's
Yeah.
not going to last long. The insurance company should not be insuring them. It's going to cost them. They're going to make a lot of stupid mistakes, and I treat them like they're idiots
Yeah.
and like they're dangerous because this guy attempted to do something that was politically violent.
Yeah.
And so, defending that person was like, okay, yeah, yeah, now you mess with the wrong person, but I'm not gonna, I'm gonna, yeah, that.
Cool.
Yeah, and then
Very
I
clear.
call the insurance company and I call everyone involved in that, and I tell them this is the conversation, this is what happened. I'm not going. Find someone else, right?
Yeah.
This has been resolved, and then they're like, and then there's new people at the insurance company, and so if they say, how did it get resolved? So I write a 5-page letter explaining everything, including that person's letter about my work and all this
Hmm.
stuff, and send it to the insurance company. Say, this is the last time I'm dealing with this. You deal with this. And
Right.
then someone who knew about it came in and quieted everybody down and called me and talked me down.
Right. So that's the difference. Like when I'm believing this thought, even on a subtle level that they're rubbing it in, I have to be talked down because the emotion has risen up and has
Yeah,
moved into the field of action more than just whatever was necessary.
that's a very
So,
good way. Yeah.
and let's just touch on this too. How do you treat yourself when you think in that moment when you thought they were rubbing it in? How are you treating yourself in any way? Did it show
Well,
up that
I'm
way?
sure it's not healthy for me to be in that state of anger. And at that point, I'm like, well, F you, I'm not going to do any work for you if this is what it's going to be like. And, if there's a problem, bring it to my attention. I will thank you for pointing it out. And I have he wrote a letter about all these things that I didn't do. And I read the letter, and there was one thing in there that I thought was a good idea. And I
Mm.
actually put it in my class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Right.
it's not like, oh yeah, it's like, whoa, well, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. You know what? I didn't do that. That's a good idea. And I even put that in my response. It's like, yeah, this none of this is this and this and this are not accurate, and this was a good idea. I included that, and it's like, but that was enough. I was worried that he was going to show up in the class or put someone in the class to harass me or do something to actually physically show up.
Okay. So
So that
any
was
other
my other fear. That's
reactions?
how I treated them.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
well, I asked like, how do you treat yourself? Does that show up for you?
Well, lately, because of the health issues that I have been working with, I contacted a friend of mine and I did the work with her. So the way I treat myself is I try to keep myself as healthy as I can. But I did the work on that, they're idiots, not
Right.
my reaction, my reaction.
Okay. So who would you be without the thought that they're rubbing it in when they call or when they write?
I would be the person who would say, oh, you know what? I'm not authorized to have this conversation with you. your human resources, you should be talking to the insurance company. And I would just I know that it had been resolved, and I know that the insurance company would have my back, and they did. And I would just be the person going, oh, you're new, you don't know, you found a letter, there's no documentation of the resolution, call the insurance company and they'll be happy to tell you what happened. And I'd be calm. I'd be a little worried to make sure that it was in fact accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is the difference. With the thought, they're rubbing it in, the emotions get jacked up and you're ready to fight.
Yeah.
Without the thought, you're still dealing with the problem, but there's a calmness. The experience is more settled without that thought.
Well, I want to sit in that moment for without the thought, because just
Okay.
even talking about it got my
Yeah.
pulse up
So
real
just
high.
like imagine that you're getting the letter. Was it a letter they wrote or a call?
It was
That
an email with a
email.
copy of the
So
letter.
okay. So they send you this email, a copy of the letter, and you're reading this and they're saying, we don't want to work with you if you're incompetent. And imagine reading that
I was
email.
just laughing. I would be laughing like, we don't want to work with you if you're incompetent. Like, who
Yeah.
would
So if you don't have the thought that they're rubbing it in, what are you seeing in that email?
I'm seeing some very, very untrained people in a
Yeah.
very important department for a fairly large city.
That's it.
I'm feeling sorry for anyone that has to deal with them and
Yeah.
hope that they hire someone soon.
Yeah. And how would you take their statements toward you and about you and your incompetence and all that? How would you take that if you didn't think,
Yeah, I don't
oh,
blame you. I wouldn't want to hire someone incompetent either. How did you get the job?
yeah,
I would realize that a person who's own questioning their own competence would be thinking that that person had to have been questioning their own competence to be worried about someone else's competence.
and what else could be going on? Like when they're writing you this way, if you're not
They're
seeing it as
protecting they're protecting their city. They're trying to protect people. You
yeah,
know, they see a letter that says I'm incompetent.
they're
And
checking it out.
right. And if someone came up to me and said, Winnie, your information is wrong, this is not right, you didn't do this right, I am curious. Tell me where do I find that correct information? How do just like I said, he had something in his letter that was like, that's a good idea. I'm gonna do that.
Hmm.
And it improved my class. So I know no one's no one's gonna do everything 100% correctly. And without the thought, reading her email and rereading his letter and reading her email, I had to have been in a vulnerable state at the time, and I wonder if yeah, I can remember that as I noticed that there was that in the letter that I first actually had the thought, oh, I'm pretty tired right now. This is probably not a good time for me to read this. And then I just opened it up and reread I just put myself right, like, let's see if I can stand in front of the target.
Right, right.
Yeah, I must have wanted to be angry and upset because I could, when I first realized what was happening, I could have just forwarded it to the insurance company.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these different points start coming in, these points of
Hmm.
view start coming in if you're not so sure that they're rubbing it in, if that's not front and foremost in your
Yeah.
mind. Yeah. So let's turn the thought around. They're rubbing it in.
They're rubbing it out.
Okay. How could that be as
they're,
true?
they're curious. They're trying to find out, is this a something that we need to get rid of? Is
Mhm.
this just, is there something to this, or is there something we just need to get get out of our space so that we can move forward?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're
Yeah.
looking for an answer and resolution because it wasn't in their files.
Somebody didn't document whatever resolution had been done previously.
Yep.
So it's almost more on that person than it is on these people because they're just following up on something that hasn't been apparently hasn't been resolved, even though it
Yeah.
had been resolved.
So yeah, they're just trying to get that off, get that handled and taken care of so we can move forward.
Okay, cool.
And they don't know me, so why would they care how I feel? They don't know me.
Exactly. All they have is a piece of paper that says you're incompetent. So what do they know that you have like X number of years of super competency? Like they don't have that information.
Hey, I might be incompetent. You
That's a
know?
whole other thing, but
That's
you
another
know.
turnaround in a sense, is they're telling the truth, you know.
Right.
I mean,
So let's go to another turnaround. They're rubbing it in. Is there another way to turn that
I'm
around?
rubbing it in.
Okay, so how is that? Rubbing it in, there's kind of two ways to take this. One is rubbing it in to myself, and the other is rubbing it in towards them.
Yes, and I did just have that thought too. It's like, which one? Well, I am rubbing it into myself by my overreaction, and and I was responding to my emotional state in it. Um, Usually when I'm upset, I try to calm myself down before I communicate with people, but I did not do that this time. I'm going to give you the full force of my response to this.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, and that was rubbing it into them and not letting myself calm down ahead of time and just think it through, was also rubbing it into myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because this thing was resolved, right? In the at some point
No,
in the past.
yeah, they were not it was not only resolved, but there were quite a few apologies that were sent my way.
Okay, so you forgetting that temporarily went into this new letter and rubbed it in again, like rubbed yourself in it
Yeah.
again, and then rubbed them in it
Yeah,
again.
yeah. It's like, let me just re-experience this. I guess I didn't experience enough of it. Let's have some more.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, I'm rubbing it into them. The A lot of people got involved in defending the situation, defending me and the quality of what I do, um, which made me feel better. And so another turnaround is I kind of rubbed the good stuff in.
Hmm.
There was a lot of communication between the insurance company and the city and anyone else that was involved in that, about their faith in me and the quality of my work, and that that they wanted to make sure that there wasn't anyone who was going to be in the class that might be inappropriate, and that the guy, someone even wrote that they were going to make sure they contacted the guy to make sure that he wasn't going to show up at the class.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah,
also
we
true.
kind of
Like
rubbed the
rubbing in
good
the
part in, you know.
got
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So um as you were working, like one of the other thoughts that you mentioned at the beginning was something like they believe it, right? Remember that was another
Yeah,
piece of that?
my fear that they would just believe it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was thinking like what does that mean? It's like they believe I'm incompetent, right? That's sort of that could be
Mhm.
another take on this. We could do the work on they believe I'm incompetent, and it's another kind of underlying belief connected in here. And I don't know, we could do a quick version of that if you
Yeah,
want
real
to,
quick.
or
Sure.
we just
Yeah,
have
so they
like
believe
five
I'm
minutes.
incompetent.
Yeah. So is that
Okay.
true?
In that moment it was, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
can you absolutely know it's true? They believe you're incompetent?
No. No, in fact, they were asking me if I was. asking me if I was incompetent.
Good point. Okay. So how do you react when you think they believe you're incompetent and they send you that letter,
I'm
that
not laughing
email?
like I was now. Right?
No.
Yeah. No, I was like, I react with just no, go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and anger and frustration and an underlying fear that maybe I am and don't
Mhm.
know it,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
So who would you be without the thought they believe you're incompetent?
There
In the
I
moment
would
when
in
you're
that moment I would believe that they were trying to clean up a bunch of loose ends left by the person that they replaced
yeah.
and that they were trying to be competent.
Yep. It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
So turn the thought around, they believe I'm incompetent.
They believe I'm competent or they wouldn't have asked me if that letter was accurate.
It makes sense.
Did this get resolved? And from that competency, they didn't involve anybody else but me. And so they were protecting me from other people thinking that someone had written a letter about my incompetency.
Wow.
Wow. Hmm.
Yeah. Something almost respectful about that.
Yeah. So does that mean I really did overreact? Oh, sorry, I'm going. I'm glad I
So,
resolved that one.
so they believe I'm incompetent.
Yeah.
What's another turnaround?
I believe I'm incompetent.
So in that moment, can you find it?
Yeah. Yeah, because I am interpreting the law the way I understand it and the way it's typically interpreted, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate. There are still things that could be there that I'm not aware of that could make what I'm doing um, not completely perfect.
Yeah.
Like I'm teaching them how to do something, but I might be leaving something out without even knowing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always the possibility or the likelihood that something I'm telling them is either inaccurate or incomplete.
So
Yeah.
that little doubt is there, right? And then
Mhm.
when the letter comes, even though it's doesn't make sense because it's all been resolved and everything,
Oh,
it
yeah.
activates that little doubt in there and
Without
off it goes.
yeah, you're right. Without the doubt, then I would have just not I wouldn't have reacted.
Mm.
It would have been, yeah. You're right. Byron Katie, yeah, you're right. I am incompetent.
Some things are just
You're
true.
right. I am. That's true. In a lot of different places, I'm incompetent. Oh no,
Yeah.
don't eat my cooking. That is, I am definitely incompetent.
Even if I take the thing that I'm the most competent at, whatever that
Something.
is, if I take that thing, I can still find incompetent in there,
That's right.
right?
That's
That
right.
and that's an open mind. That's a it's a place of humility even. And but like it depends on how you hold it. Like I can find
Mm.
incompetency even in my most competent place, so therefore I'm insecure. That's one way to take it. Or I
Yeah.
can find incompetency where I'm competent, and okay, that keeps me humble and keeps me growing and keeps
Thank
me
you. And I try
learning.
to do that. And a lot of times people will ask me a question in the class, and I just get right on the internet and we go right to the regulation and we search for it. And I don't just give them an answer. I find where it says what it's supposed to say. And I'm surprised sometimes too what it says because I'll say, well, I think it's this, but let's look it up. And then I've shown them how to look something up and I got more accurate information and I can correct myself and I've done that before. So
Beautiful. Yeah.
but the doubt had to be there for me to react.
exactly.
Yeah,
Like
it
that's
had
the
to, I couldn't have reacted without that doubt.
makes
Yeah.
sense. So then last turnaround, they believe I'm incompetent. How would you turn it around towards them?
I believe they're incompetent. Yeah.
So how could that have been going on? How is that as much of what's causing the stress or the reaction in that moment as them believing you're incompetent?
What's really funny too, because as you were saying that, my picture in my head was, I'm glad they called me first and not the insurance company. You know, because then someone who didn't know who I was would have. Yeah. So I think they're incompetent, not in a way that's insulting. I think that they have change of employees. People left, and they they honestly did not know what needed to be done, and they were just doing the best that they knew how to do. And they couldn't possibly know everything any more than I could possibly know everything. And so their incompetence and my incompetence were pretty equally matched there.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not bad. It's just,
They're doing their best. It's
yeah,
difficult when employees change and it's not a lot of things fall through the cracks.
true.
Um, so
So, like,
yeah,
the definition of incompetence isn't necessarily like stupid or anything. It's more,
right. But in the moment of your reaction, you were going into they're
they
like
were,
stupid, right? It was
they were,
visceral. It was you
look
were
at you.
thinking they were incompetent in a really bad way, the way you were imagining they were thinking it about you, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But now looking at it again, it's hard to bring that feeling back. I remember thinking it, but I don't
yeah,
feel it now. And I
yeah.
love work.
Me too. Me too. Thank you for your work.
Wow. Hey, thank you for working me.